The image of China as a mediator and peacemaker is gaining strength as governments and organizations from West Asia to Eastern Europe seek Beijing's assistance in solving conflicts raging at home. War-torn Ukraine was the latest to reach out to the Chinese government, with Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba arriving in Guangzhou Wednesday for a bilateral meeting with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi. He will depart the country today on Friday. I am convinced that a just peace in Ukraine is in China's strategic interests, and China's role as a global force for peace is important, said Kuleba during his meeting with Wang Yi, according to a statement published by the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Hello and welcome to The Print. In this explainer, I will be looking at China's growing global image as a mediator and peacemaker in the world. Ukraine has reached out to Beijing for help in ending the nearly 3-year-old Russia-Ukraine war, despite China's no-limits partnership with Moscow. Kuleba's visit came a day after 14 factions in Palestine, including Hamas, which rules the Gaza Strip, and Fatah, which forms the government in the West Bank, agreed to reconcile and form a unity government to govern Gaza after the end of the conflict with Israel in an agreement brokered by Beijing. On Tuesday, Beijing announced a 3-step process for peace in Palestine, which envisions a path from a ceasefire in Gaza to a full membership of the United Nations for Palestine as an independent country. Earlier in May, it had also published, along with Brazil, a 6-point alternative peace plan for the Russia-Ukraine war, weeks before the Global Peace Summit was being hosted by Switzerland on the same issue. In March 2023, China acted as a mediator between Saudi Arabia and Iran, helping the two West Asian powers to resume ties that had been frozen since 2016. Riyadh and Tehran were on opposite sides in both the Syrian and Yemeni civil wars. Jabin Thomas Jacob, an associate professor at the Shiv Nadar Institution of Eminence, told ThePrint that it was a win-win situation for China. China is not affected by the real outcome in the peace processes, especially in the Russia-Ukraine war. However, for optics, if Beijing's proposal succeeds, it's a win for them. If it fails, there is no criticism, for they at least tried, Jacob said. He added that it is not mediation to achieve a genuine outcome. It is about what they, that is China, are getting out of it. They are not interested in a lasting outcome, especially if it weakens Russia. Beijing has not criticized Russia yet for its aggression and is always talking about Moscow's point of view. In a way, this requires Ukraine to accept the reasons for Russian aggression. Experts speaking to ThePrint linked China's interest in a role as a mediator to its desire to change its image as a provocateur and to offer an alternate strategic gravity point to the US-led global order. While terms such as common ground or peaceful neighbor are frequently found in ancient Chinese texts, mediation is not a part of their common strategic thinking, according to Aravind Yeleri, an associate professor at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Jabin Jacob explained that the Chinese have been smooth in creating the optics of a peacemaker. The use of a triangular table, for example, makes it seem like all are equal at the negotiation table. The question is on the substance or the outcomes of such negotiations. Yeleri added that the sudden spate of peacemaking talks and discussions is a signal to the global powers that China can bring all parties to the negotiating table, regardless of whether Beijing truly believes in an honest or lasting agreement. Brokering the detente between Riyadh and Tehran was one of its most successful foreign policy victories in West Asia. But even in this situation, the experts noted that a large part of the legwork for the agreement was conducted by Oman before China swooped in to push the final agreement towards the finishing line. For China, Saudi Arabia and Iran are important partners because they are non-democratic countries, and their ties would point to democracy not working in Asia. There is also a certain degree of nationalism on the rise in Saudi Arabia that is anti-American. Beijing is very happy to encourage and promote such nationalism, explained Jabin Jacob. The sharpening ideological divide between the US, the European Union, and China in recent years has also contributed to Beijing's growing efforts in projecting itself as a real alternative to the Western-led global order. Countries seeking China's help in resolving conflicts are those who are disoriented by the asymmetries created by the West and the US, such as the Palestinian forces, Yellery explained. These are the powers and organizations sidelined by the US. They are not middle powers. They are struggling to achieve their economic and security potential, and China is seen as the only country offering them a chance to rebuild their economies, said Yellery. Yellery added that China has created a gravity point and everyone is attracted to it. The specific selling point Beijing offers is that it can give you funds and listen to your concerns without any conditions. It is shaping a narrative of a changing global order to emphasize this. There is an added dimension where the US looks like a warmonger and China can promote itself as a better option to it as a global peacemaker, explained Sripadna Pathak, an associate professor at the OP Jindal Global University. It selectively chooses to step into conflicts where the US already looks bad. It also intervenes cleverly when it believes the conflict is nearing its end. Maybe Beijing believes both the Israel-Gaza conflict and the Russia-Ukraine war are nearing the end, Pathak told ThePrint. She added that while at a bilateral level it would make sense for Beijing to support Israel in its conflict in Gaza, given Tel Aviv's economy and high technology sectors, for example, it has criticized the country and supported Palestine at international platforms like the United Nations. For instance, earlier this year, Beijing had called the war in Gaza a disgrace to civilization and called for an immediate ceasefire. It is a signal to the Arab world that China has engaged with the issues of the region. By trying to keep Hamas and the factions of the Palestinian movement alive, it may be able to turn the tide in West Asia towards an anti-American stance, explained Jacob. Pathak echoed similar views, adding that Beijing's support towards Palestine is a signal towards ensuring that the Arab countries see China more favorably, especially those in which it has economic interests. Experts agree that a part of China's interest in supporting countries such as Iran also lies in the fact that Tehran stands up against the US. It aids China's ideological approach to the changing global order. The non-democratic economic approach of China as a peacemaker is best seen in its policy in Afghanistan. The Chinese were encouraging Afghanistan's government to negotiate with the Taliban before it fell. For Beijing, the Taliban with an anti-American character is good for them. You do not see the country applying pressure on the Taliban to get women back to school, for example. It is ideological for them, said Jacob. A delegation from the Taliban rubbed shoulders with Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Beijing at the Third Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation in October 2023. While Beijing does not recognize the Taliban-led Afghan government, that has not stopped the country from improving its ties with the regime. In July 2021, a delegation from the Taliban met Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Beijing also appointed a new ambassador to Afghanistan in September 2023. That's all from me today. Thank you for tuning in. Subscribe below for more such news and analysis from ThePrint.